Mark from the States, Mark from the States, it's Mark from the United States.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Mark from the States. How we doing today? I'm doing fantastic, as always, and I hope you are as well. We're kind of gearing up for the festivities here early next month. So I wanted to do kind of a history of the unknown warrior. This is a video that has not been requested, but has come across my feed that I've kind of pinned a while ago that I can go back to. And I wanted to kind of know the history of it. Hopefully that's what this is about. So please come along, sit down, watch it with me, and thank you. Thank you for all your support. I really do love every one of you. You've really made this whole journey special for me. So, and let me just point out, some of you say I ramble too much at the beginning. And when I say some, I mean it's literally on one hand I can count. There's a slider at the bottom, as you know. Just fast forward over me if you don't want to hear me yap. So, very cool. But thank you for coming. I really do appreciate it. All right, let's get into this. The Unknown Warrior. I love looking at this old footage. I really do.
On November the 7th, 1920, in the strictest secrecy, 4 unidentified British bodies were exhumed from temporary battlefield cemeteries at Ypres, Arras, the Aisne, and the Somme, and placed in 4 plain coffins, each covered with a Union flag. None of the soldiers who did the digging were told why. The bodies were taken by field ambulance to the general headquarters at Saint-Paul-sur-Tenoise, and once there, the coffins were draped with the Union flag. Sentries were posted, and Brigadier General Wyatt closed his eyes and, moving between the coffins, selected one at random. The other 3 were reburied. A French honor guard was selected from the 8th Infantry, who had recently been awarded the Légion d'honneur en masse, and they stood vigil by the coffin of the chosen soldier overnight. On the morning of the 8th of November, a specially designed oaken coffin made from trees cut from the grounds of Hampton Court Palace arrived, and the unknown soldier was placed inside. The casket was banded with iron, and a medieval crusader's sword, chosen personally by King George V from the royal collection, was fixed on top and surmounted by an iron shield bearing the inscription, "A British warrior who fell in the Great War, 1914 to 1918, for king and country." The casket was then placed onto a French military wagon drawn by 6 black horses. Then the mile-long procession, led by 1,000 local schoolchildren and escorted by a division of French troops, made its way down to the harbour, to the sound of the Boulogne church bells, the massed trumpets of the French cavalry, and the bugles of the French infantry. There he was saluted by Marshal Foch and carefully carried up the gangway of the destroyer HMS Verdun, bound for Dover, and piped aboard to an admiral's call. The coffin stood on the deck, covered in wreaths, surrounded by the French honor guard. HMS Verdun slipped anchor just before noon, and escorted by 6 battleships, set sail for England. As they passed Dover Castle, the flotilla received a 19-gun Field Marshal's salute. Upon arrival at the docks, the body was placed on a special train in van number 132, which had previously carried the bodies of the beloved nurse Edith Cavell, who had helped 200 Allied prisoners escape from German-occupied Belgium and who was executed by a German firing squad, and Charles Fryatt, a civilian merchant navy captain who was also executed for attempting to ram a U-boat despite being a civilian non-combatant. The train remained at Victoria Station in London overnight, and a plaque still marks the spot between platforms 8 and 9 where every year a small remembrance service takes place. On the morning of the 11th of November 1920, the casket was placed onto a gun carriage of the Royal Horse Artillery and drawn by 6 horses through immense and silent crowds. As the cortege set off, a further Field Marshal salute was fired in Hyde Park. The route followed was past Hyde Park Corner, the Mall, and into Whitehall, where the cenotaph, a symbolic empty tomb, was unveiled by King Emperor George V. The cortege was then followed by the King, the royal family, and ministers of state to Westminster Abbey, where the casket was borne into the west nave of the Abbey, flanked by a guard of honour of 100 recipients of the Victoria Cross, the highest bravery award that can be bestowed on a member of the British Armed Forces. The idea of the unknown soldier came to an army chaplain, David Rowton, who had served on the front line during the Great War. He had seen a grave marked by a rough cross while serving on the Western Front, which bore the pencil-written legend, "An unknown British soldier." In his own words, "How that grave caused me to think. But who was he? And who were they, his folk?" There was no answer to those questions, nor has there ever been yet. So I thought, and wrestled in thought. What can I do to ease the pain of the father, mother, brother, sister, sweetheart, wife, and friend? Quietly and gradually, there came out of the mist of thought this answer, clear and strong. Let this body, this symbol of him, be carried reverently over the sea to his native land. And I was happy for a few minutes. He suggested the nation should have a symbolic funeral and burial of an unknown warrior, proposing that the grave should include a national monument. The idea received the support of the Dean of Westminster, Prime Minister David Lloyd George, and later from King George V, responding to a wave of public support. The coffin was then interred in the far western end of the nave of Westminster Abbey, only a few feet from the entrance, in soil bought from each of the main battlefields and covered with a silk pall. Servicemen from the armed forces stood guard as tens of thousands of mourners filed silently past. The guests of honor were a group of about 100 women. They had been chosen because they had each lost their husband and all their sons in the war. The grave was then capped with a black Belgian marble stone and is the only tombstone in the abbey upon which it is forbidden to walk. It features an inscription engraved on brass from ammunition that had been melted down. Beneath this stone rests the body of a British warrior, unknown by name or rank, brought from France to lie among the most illustrious of the land, and buried here on Armistice Day, 11th of November 1920, in the presence of His Majesty King George V, his ministers of state, the chiefs of his forces, and a vast concourse of the nation. Thus are commemorated the many multitudes who, during the Great War of 1914 to 1918, gave the most that man can give, life itself, for God, for king and country, for loved ones, home and empire, for the sacred cause of justice and the freedom of the world. They buried him among the kings, because he has done good towards God and towards his house.
Tower in London and the poppies that we just watched.
So it is at this time we remember those who died during the Great War and every conflict since by wearing a red poppy. The Remembrance Poppy was inspired by the Canadian physician Lieutenant Colonel John McCree in Flanders Field, with the immortal lines, "In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row." So at 11 a.m. on the 11th of November each year, we remember with humility the great and ultimate sacrifices that were made, not just in this war, but in every war and conflict where our service personnel have fought, to ensure the liberty and freedoms we now take for granted. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
Wow. That is right there. We will remember them. Oh, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. We have something similar here, of course, with the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, which came after this, of course. But and they have that bugle call there at the end, which always gets me. Here in the States, we play taps, which is similar. And every time I hear it, it just makes me cry. And I'm sure if I were to just sit and listen to that, it would probably, this is an itch, by the way. Not, it would probably, it just brings the emotion out into you. I feel a little guilty. I feel a little guilty because I'm looking forward to this day, and maybe guilt. Maybe I shouldn't feel guilty, but I'm looking forward to watching all the festivities, to watching all these little videos on the history of it, and I don't know if guilt is the feeling I should have, or the excitement, I guess, because I want to know more about it, but I feel guilty because I'm excited to watch it, and it's such a solemn, sad day, I guess, and I'm excited to see it. I don't know. It's kind of there's a lot of emotions I'm going through, and I apologize. And Memorial Day here in the States, which is in May, the end of May. When I watch, I don't look forward to it, but when I watch all the events and all the little videos on it and stuff, and TV programs that talk about it, I get very emotional. So, but I don't look forward to it. This I want to know. I want to know more about. So I do feel like I'm going to get emotional once I understand it better. But again, I just feel kind of guilty in the fact that I'm looking forward to it. Let me know if that's totally way off base. But I don't know. We trudge on because I want to see more. So it's just so beautiful. Thank you for allowing me to kind of ramble there. Thank you for coming to watch this with me. This is special. Hope everybody's happy, healthy, and safe. And we'll watch another. Thank you. Bye.